Chosen One, the reason you're seeing this is because your timeline is ready to shift. Every step you took, every silence you endured, every hidden tear you shed led you here to this exact moment of remembrance. Something unseen has aligned to pull you into this message, because truth has been circling your name long before you knew you were chosen. What you are about to hear is not entertainment, it is recognition. The confirmation that what you have always sensed deep inside is now unfolding in full clarity. They never wanted you to know why you were targeted, why whispers followed you, why shadows seemed to organize against your peace. But what if I told you their secret unity is already breaking, and your very presence was the seed of their collapse? If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Stay with me, because the revelation about to open will show you that the plot against you was never stronger than the hand that preserved you. Number 1. The Silent Pact. From the beginning, their alliance was built not in light, but in shadow. They whispered together behind closed doors, constructing fragile schemes out of fear, mistaking secrecy for strength. Job 5 verse 12 declares, "He thwarts the plans of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no success." And every hidden plot against you was marked for failure from its very inception. Their unity was never genuine. It was a desperate bond, tied together only by their shared resentment of the light you carried. The reason you unsettled them was not what you said or did, but the vibration you brought into every room, the silent reminder that truth cannot be silenced forever. They mistook your silence as weakness, not knowing it was heaven itself recording their words in the unseen ledger. Comment, "I seal this word in light," if you've ever felt the weight of whispers fall apart when you walked away. And stay close, because the mirror they most feared is the one you never meant to hold. From the first moments of your awareness, there was always a shadow moving just beyond your sight, whispering like a presence that could not be named. You may not have had the words for it then, but you felt it, a heaviness in certain rooms, a quiet shift in the air when your spirit walked in. Dreams carried fragments of it, symbols you could never fully interpret, but they stayed with you like unspoken warnings etched on your memory. It was as though something in you always knew there were forces arranging themselves against your light, long before you ever declared who you were. The unease you carried was not paranoia, but prophecy unfolding in silence. Every chosen one feels it before they understand it, a veil of secrecy surrounding their name. That veil is the first sign that their existence has already been noticed by both heaven and shadows. You can likely recall moments when your heart sensed the strangeness of your path, when you felt isolated even among familiar faces. Perhaps you were the child who seemed too sensitive, the one who saw through smiles that others accepted at face value. You may have heard the quiet laughter behind your back, or felt the sting of rejection without reason, leaving you to wonder why your presence carried such weight. Their whispers, subtle and relentless, tried to shape you into doubting yourself, tried to make you shrink into silence. Yet even in your confusion, you held an ache for meaning that could not be erased. That ache was your soul, remembering what your mind could not yet grasp. The very fact that you felt out of place was the evidence that you were marked for something beyond place and time. What seemed like random difficulties were never accidents, but alignments within a greater architecture. Every betrayal you faced, every circle that turned against you, every false story told in secret halls was not chaos, it was design. Job 5 verse 12 says, "He thwarts the plans of the crafty, so that their hands achieve no success." And you are the living embodiment of that truth. Though they plotted, their schemes only built the stage for your endurance. Their alliances were fragile, because they were stitched together not by love, but by fear of your light. You were not the cause of their unity. You were the revelation of their insecurity. Their very gathering was proof that your presence already disrupted the structures they relied on to stay hidden. There were signs you may not have noticed at the time, moments of déjà vu when something whispered that this had all happened before, the sudden dream that revealed faces you had not thought about in years, or the shiver when you entered a space where words had been spoken against you. Even the way certain people avoided your gaze, or how doors closed when you drew near, were pieces of a code you were being trained to read. The ache in your chest when lies circled your name was not weakness, but spiritual sensitivity in its raw form. You may have dismissed these things as coincidence, but coincidence was only a mask for divine mathematics. Patterns were forming all along, waiting for the moment you would see through them. What felt like isolation was always preparation, shaping your eyes to read the hidden script beneath appearances. The truth is, you were not imagining the weight you felt. Your intuition has always been sharper than they wanted you to believe. They laughed at your insights, hoping you would bury them. But heaven preserved every inner knowing you carried. The dissonance you sensed in their voices, the unease in their laughter, the sudden change in energy when you entered the room, all of it was real. You have never been weak for feeling too much. You have been strong for surviving the pressure of carrying sight others could not understand. Recognition does not always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it comes like the slow lifting of fog, revealing what you always suspected. That is where you stand now, at the threshold of recognition, no longer dismissing the truth your soul has been whispering all along. In this recognition, your footing becomes steady, because you know heaven has been on your side from the beginning. And here is the deeper revelation. Your awakening is not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who you always were beneath the noise. What they tried to bury was not your potential, but your memory of identity, an archetypal truth written before your birth. They attempted to distract you with shame, rejection, and endless comparisons, but they could not erase the original inscription on your soul. Your story was sealed like a scroll, hidden until the appointed time, waiting for your eyes to be opened. Every delay in your life was not a denial, but a timing device aligned with your unveiling. You were not late. You were preserved. You are now remembering what cannot be forgotten. You were always more than they said you were. This is the moment of first activation, the step where you begin to embrace what they wanted you to deny. The sensitivity they mocked is now your compass. The inner fire they feared is now your authority. You can stand in what once felt like exile and see that it was sanctuary, a place where your vision was sharpened. No longer do you need to apologize for carrying too much light, because the shadows proved its strength. Their whispers were never proof of your weakness, but of their awareness that your silence was louder than their performance. Every attempt to suppress you was a testimony of how significant you already were. And now you rise into the truth. The very things you thought disqualified you are the things that confirm your calling. So hear this final word of this turning point. You did not stumble here by chance. Your arrival to this moment of remembrance was woven into the tapestry of your soul. What you thought was coincidence has been confirmation. What you thought was random has been revelation. You have been preserved for this hour, and your recognition is proof that the time has come. Comment, I carry the silence as crown. If you know this word is speaking to the hidden truth you have always carried, share your own dream, memory, or moment of knowing, because every testimony becomes a thread in this living scroll of remembrance. And stay with me, because what follows after awareness is exposure, and when masks begin to crack, the facade can no longer survive. Number 2, the mirror that shook them. Chosen one, what unsettled them most was not your words, but your presence. Like a mirror before their souls, you reflected what they tried to bury, and in your authenticity their masks began to split. Luke 12 verse 2 tells us, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. And your existence carried that prophecy without a word. You didn't accuse them, you didn't expose them. You simply lived in a truth they could not imitate, and in that truth, their stage crumbled. Your peace was a weapon sharper than their lies. Your silence was a sermon they could not endure. They panicked not because you attacked, but because you revealed them to themselves. Comment, I walk crowned by eternal flame. If you've ever seen masks fall apart around you, and prepare, because when illusions crack, collapse is inevitable. It often begins with something subtle, a heaviness in the room when you walk in, a shift in tone that no one else seems to notice. Conversations suddenly falter, eyes glance away, and the atmosphere thickens as if truth itself had entered uninvited. You may not have understood it at first, but your presence carried a vibration that unsettled the very air around those who were hiding behind masks. It was not what you said, but the resonance of your spirit that began peeling away their facades. Like a mirror they never asked to see, you reflected their own shadows back to them. That reflection was not cruel, but it was unavoidable, for light cannot enter a space without revealing what dwells within it. And so, before you even spoke, they already felt exposed. The weight of this resistance pressed against your emotions like a constant reminder that you did not belong where lies were currency. They accused you of being too much, of being difficult, of shining too brightly in places that demanded conformity. You felt misunderstood, pushed to the edges, even made to wonder if your authenticity was a burden rather than a blessing. Rejection struck not because you failed, but because you revealed what others desperately needed to keep hidden. Shame tried to root itself in you, convincing you to lower your gaze, silence your voice, and dim your light. Yet even in the sting of isolation, something in you refused to vanish. That refusal was the quiet rebellion of your soul declaring, I was never created to disappear. Over time, you began to see that the pressure was not random. It had structure, design, and even strategy. It wasn't just individuals who resisted you. It was entire patterns, environments, and systems woven to suppress what you carried. You were like Israel in the wilderness, guided by fire while surrounded by forces that sought to consume. Every closed door, every betrayal, every sudden shift of loyalty was part of a larger script meant to train your discernment. Luke 12 verse 2 whispers truth across time. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. You became the embodiment of that verse, a walking prophecy, and without lifting a hand you revealed what they swore would stay buried. Their panic was not against your actions, but against the inevitability of your existence. Looking back, you can see the patterns with clarity you did not have then. The strange betrayals that repeated, the friendships that soured at the same point, the opportunities that collapsed when you stood too firmly in yourself. These were not accidents, but echoes, each one circling the same lesson until you could read the code hidden within them. Like a light turned on in a dark corridor, the truth illuminated what once felt confusing. Their resistance was a reaction to your authenticity. The energy they carried could not survive in the presence of what you carried. It was not that you failed to fit in, it was that your presence broke the illusion they needed to survive. And once illusions crack, they cannot be repaired. You began to notice how even the air changed in certain places, as though unseen watchers pressed against your spirit. There were doors that seemed permanently closed, environments where heaviness clung to you like fog, and people whose smiles hid sharpness behind them. The truth is, your light attracted interference, because distortion always tries to dim what it cannot duplicate. Some of what you felt was not natural at all. It was spiritual resistance, crafted to confuse and exhaust you. Yet every heavy atmosphere was proof that your essence was doing unseen work. shaking foundations they swore were immovable. Your silence became a sword, cutting through layers of pretense without effort. And though it was painful, it was also prophecy. Naturally, you reacted as anyone would under such weight. At times you may have shut down, convinced that invisibility would buy you peace. Other times you bent yourself to fit, people-pleasing, just to avoid the sting of rejection. Sometimes you rebelled quietly, refusing to agree with lies, but lacking the energy to confront them openly. There were days you wanted to give up, not because you lacked strength, but because the resistance drained you of joy. This was not weakness. It was the human response to carrying a mantle no one prepared you for. The fear of standing out, the temptation to shrink, the urge to disappear. All of it was part of the mirror they forced you to hold. But here lies the reversal. Their resistance was not condemnation, it was confirmation. Every whisper against you, every sabotage, every cold shoulder was proof of what you carried. They did not react because you were ordinary. They reacted because you unsettled what was false. The very fire they tried to quench became the furnace that sharpened your discernment. Your silence became your shield. Your endurance became your authority. Your authenticity became your weapon. What they thought would break you was actually chiseling you into the shape of your calling. And now you rise, not apologizing for what you reflect, but standing as the mirror heaven always intended you to be. So take this truth with you. You were never opposed because you were weak, but because you were powerful. The mirror you carried was not something you held in your hand, but something you embodied in your presence. Their resistance did not define you, it revealed them. Every plot they formed was only their attempt to survive the truth your existence made undeniable. And every attempt to silence you was proof that your voice was already echoing louder than theirs. Comment, I move guarded by divine fire. If this word has opened something within you, and share a memory where your authenticity revealed more than you intended. Because what begins with resistance always leads to exposure. And exposure is only the beginning of your coronation. Number 3, the breaking point of illusion. It always begins quietly, like cracks on glass, until the whole surface shatters at once. The words they used against you are now the very evidence exposing their falsehoods, unraveling into self-betrayal they can no longer deny. Habakkuk 2 verse 3 promises, though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay, and your endurance has reached the hour where lies fold in on themselves. They fought to keep their narratives alive, but every contradiction became a testimony. Every attempt to smear you only revealed more of them. The very energy they invested into blocking you has returned multiplied, dismantling the stage they built out of shadows. You no longer need to defend yourself, because the collapse itself is your vindication. Comment, I rise marked by the divine. If you've witnessed deception crumble before your eyes, and share the moment you saw truth outlast the storm, because what follows collapse is elevation. Something shifts suddenly, almost like a veil lifting, and the world you thought you knew no longer feels the same. A memory that once carried confusion now clicks into place with striking clarity, and you realize it was never random. The coincidences that once unsettled you now look like carefully aligned signals waiting for this very moment. It is as if your sight has widened, and the patterns written beneath your life rise like constellations into view. The dissonance that weighed on your chest is revealed not as madness, but as the pressure of awakening. The cracks that have appeared in the stories told about you are not signs of your failure. They are the beginning of the shattering of illusion. And what you feel in your spirit now is the recognition that exposure was not an accident, but a divine inevitability. As you step into this clarity, you begin to notice how reality itself has been speaking to you all along. The numbers that repeat on clocks and receipts, the dreams that revisit the same symbols, the words overheard in passing conversations. They are not noise, but codes. Reality is not silent. It is a scroll that has always been waiting for you to read. The hidden geometry of your life was whispering messages, but you did not yet have the eyes to perceive. Now, every silence feels heavy with meaning. Every delay feels deliberate. Every path feels threaded with design. What seemed ordinary reveals itself as divine mathematics, patterns of alignment too precise to ignore. You are not imagining it. You are awakening to the language of the unseen. This awakening is not only external. It is surging from within you with undeniable strength. Your intuition, once quiet and fragile, is now loud, sharp, and insistent. The boundaries you once struggled to set rise like ancient gates, protecting what is sacred in you. Your body feels environments differently now. Heaviness where deceit lingers, peace where truth reigns. Even your energy speaks without words, confirming what your spirit already knows. Where once you doubted yourself, now you recognize these inner pulses as the divine compass guiding you through shadows. It is not paranoia. It is perception sharpened by fire. And that perception is the first proof that the veil is crumbling. As your inner world awakens, your outer reality bends to mirror it. People who once stood firmly against you begin to unravel in their own contradictions. Opportunities appear in strange alignments, arriving not by chance, but by orchestration beyond human calculation. The resistance intensifies at the same time doors begin to open, showing you that both blessing and opposition are woven together in this season. What is within you is echoed without you, like heaven itself is confirming the shift you feel. Divine architecture, unseen but undeniable, is reordering everything around your life. The patterns of betrayal now look less like chaos and more like catalysts. The unfolding proves that what could not be hidden inside you could never be hidden outside you either. In this unveiling, you realize that what is happening is not new but remembered. It is as though a dream you carried for years without language is suddenly speaking in full sentences. A resonance vibrates through your being, reminding you that you have walked this path before in other forms, in other ages, in other names. Your deepest intelligence is not being created now, it is being uncovered. As those scrolls sealed within you are opening at last, the visions, the inner knowings, the strange familiarity of your battles were fragments of a memory long buried. And now, what felt like mystery is revealed as the return of an ancient recognition. You are not becoming something new. You are remembering what was written of you from the beginning. This remembrance pulls your eyes toward the horizon of destiny. The future no longer feels like a blank canvas. It feels like a story already carved in stone, waiting for you to step into its chapter. You begin to understand that you do not need permission to walk into what has always been yours. The illusions they built to contain you fall powerless, because destiny cannot be caged by opinion. A call rises inside you like thunder breaking silence, demanding that you claim what was already written in your name. You hear the echo of prophecy, not from outside voices, but from your own awakened soul. And in that echo, the path ahead no longer feels distant. It feels inevitable. With this realization comes reclamation. The weight they tried to use to silence you becomes the stone you now stand upon. Every attempt to bury you becomes the soil from which your authority grows. The resistance you endured was not proof of weakness, but evidence of power. You no longer wait for validation from the voices that trembled before your authenticity. Instead, you take back the voice, the vision, and the inheritance they thought you would forget. And in this reclamation, you rise not as the accused, but as the crowned. So here is the revelation. Collapse is not the end of illusion, but the invitation into truth. You were never meant to carry their lies as your identity. You were meant to outlast them until they collapsed under their own weight. What they feared most has happened. You have seen behind the veil, and you cannot unsee. The exposure is not your downfall, it is your coronation. The truth was always circling your name, waiting for you to be ready to hold it. Comment, I walk hidden yet never lost. If you know this unveiling speaks to you, and share a dream, a memory, or a moment when truth revealed itself in your journey. Because what breaks in collapse is only the foundation of the throne you were always meant to rise upon. Number 4, the rise of your authority. Exposure is never the end. Chosen one, it is coronation. Zechariah 10 verse 12 declares, I will strengthen them in the Lord, and in his name they will live securely. And the very weight you carried has become your crown. You no longer walk as the accused, but as the preserved. Discernment sharpened by the fire they meant to destroy you with. They feared your silence. They feared your resilience. And now they will fear the crown that proves you endured it all. What they used to break you has been turned into your inheritance. Clarity, resilience, and authority no hand can strip away. This is not merely survival. It is enthronement, the shift from hidden preparation into undeniable authority. Comment, I anchor this truth in my soul. If you know endurance has already crowned you, and reflect on the moment you realize their schemes only built your throne, stay with me, because the revelation of authority is only the beginning. The greater unveiling is next. There comes a moment when the silence within you no longer feels like absence, but like an ancient voice speaking again. It whispers not in words, but in a vibration that feels older than the body you wear, older than the name you were given. You sense it as a scroll unsealing in the chambers of your soul, a memory of what you carried before the world even named you. The heaviness you once mistook for punishment reveals itself as sacred preparation, a cloak of authority woven in secret. Every wound, every tear, every sleepless night becomes part of that scroll, not as fragments of despair, but as inscriptions of initiation. And now, as the veil lifts, you understand that exposure was never meant to break you. It was meant to crown you. This is not the voice of newness, but of remembrance echoing through the marrow of your being. There has always been a hidden name written over your life, one that no accuser could stain and no betrayal could erase. It is the name whispered in the chambers of eternity, the one spoken over you before your first breath was drawn. Though the world gave you labels, masks, and stories that did not fit, your spirit never bowed to them. You felt misplaced, estranged, like the prodigal who wandered yet still bore the seal of inheritance within his veins. Isaiah spoke of the remnant hidden in silence, the sealed ones preserved until the appointed hour, and you are among them. That sense of not belonging was not evidence of your weakness, but confirmation of your sacred difference. And now that name rises within you, burning, unshakable, undeniable, the identity they tried to bury but could never touch. There is also the mark, invisible to the world but glowing in the eyes of those with sight. It is the resonance you carry when you enter a room, the way silence shifts even before you speak. Some could never explain why they envied you, feared you, or desired to silence you. They were only reacting to the weight of the unseen cloak you wore. Others recognized it, without needing to ask, as if they too bore the memory of a seal once placed upon them. Your authority has never been in titles or positions, but in this invisible garment, a mantle tailored for you by divine hands. Even when you tried to shrink, it clung to you, refusing to let you forget what you carried. And now that mantle has become visible, not as fabric, but as fire, proof of the calling you could never outrun. Chosen one, remember this. Their collapse was your coronation. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video and comment, I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because their awakening may begin with your word. Until next time, Walk sealed, walk crowned, walk chosen.